Celtics Beat is brought to you by Ice Picks.
Hey everybody, welcome in. This is Celtics Beat, of course, on CLNS. We always like to remind you, check out the show, both video and audio. For the audio, wherever you get your podcast, rate, review, most importantly, subscribe. And the video, you can find us and a collection of other great Celtics podcasts available to you, where you can see our smiling faces on the CLNS Media page, specifically the All Access page. You will see us there. We'd love to see you in the YouTube comments section, respond to some of your thoughts. Maybe we'll mix in some throughout this particular show here today. With Evan Valenti, Adam Kaufman, we're always here. Today's special guest from WEEI, Jayson Tatum, does a great job covering the Celtics. And boy, guys, as we get down the stretch run of the regular season, do we have a lot to talk about. Turp, how are you?
I'm great, guys. Thanks for having me on. 669, nice episode.
Yeah, not bad.
Pretty great episode.
I say this only because I just happened to see it on Twitter before we started, courtesy of a Julian Edelman tweet, but happy 328 day to those who celebrate.
That's right. That's a big one in Boston.
That is.
Epic day. One of the best days we've ever had.
No kidding. So let's talk about the Celtics here. And guys, I realize this team has won 6 of 7. I want to go back to March 8th, though, actually. And that was the win in Cleveland as part of that trip that featured, of course, the Cavaliers, the Spurs, the Thunder. Boston won that game, as we know. And then the next couple of games, they were narrow losses, but they didn't look quite right for Boston. What I mean by that is you had a full-strength Celtics team against the Spurs for a minute until Brown lost his temper and got himself tossed from that game. And then the next game, obviously, you're not complete against the Thunder in terms of the roster. Jayson Tatum doesn't play. You still only lose by 2 points. And then the roll starts, where again, 6 of 7. Really, if I'm to nitpick, if I'm going to quibble here, and I do that, I mean, it should be 7 straight wins. There was no reason to lose that game to Minnesota with no Anthony Edwards and depleted Timberwolves team, but I digress. You can't quite literally win them all. 6 of 7, still great. 49-24, 4 games out of that top seed in the East, which I realize is becoming something of a pipe dream. Right now, the focus is on hanging on to the 2 seed, and we'll get to that as well. But most recently, beat a red-hot Hawks team, beat a scorching hot Oklahoma City team that had won a dozen in a row, obviously competing with some of the best. And I know another one of those is on tap in front of us, not necessarily in terms of its, total record, but the way it is played in recent months, the Charlotte Hornets under Charles Lee, the former Celtics assistant coach. This is not a team to be taken lightly as it has played. And then you have the Hawks again, the Heat are playing better, and so on. I bring all of this up. I remind everybody of all of this because this is kind of a mea culpa for me. I like to think, Ev, that Celtics Beat is ahead of the curve when it comes to most of the Celtics conversation.
Celtics Beat always first, baby.
Always first. Definitely nationally, and a lot of the times locally, too. Going all the way back to the offseason when a lot of people are, should they be tanking? They're going to suck. Go get AJ DeBonce, all this stuff. We were the ones sitting here telling you this is going to be a playoff team. Like, have you looked around the Eastern Conference? This is going to be a playoff team. And certainly leading the march of Jayson Tatum is not only going to return, but be impactful and all of those things. But as the conversation escalated, right, it continued and it went to, wait a minute, this team should represent the East. This should be the best team in the Eastern Conference. We were ahead of that. I mean, weeks ago, we were talking about that, well ahead of everybody else. Here's the mea culpa part. Here's where at least I have been slow on the uptick. It was always, they can beat the Cavs, they can beat the Pistons, they can beat the Knicks, they can beat the Hawks, they can beat the Hornets, they can win the East. They could be back in the NBA Finals. But I kind of always presented it as, but whoever that is just going to get their ass kicked in the finals by whether it's the Thunder, the Spurs, the Nuggets, the best of the West. The West is going to win this thing. And that may still be true. But man, you have to at least consider now, as a lot of other people are, again, I'm slow on this one, this Celtics team can actually win a championship this year. This team can beat the best teams in the West over the course of a 7-game series, I now believe. And Turp, I kind of can't believe that I finally come around to this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I think going back to the games that you talked about before, when they go, obviously they beat the brakes off of Cleveland. That game wasn't even competitive. Then they played San Antonio tough, and people forget, like everyone kind of gravitates towards the Jaylen Brown ejection. Jayson Tatum scored 7 straight points to begin the fourth quarter and had to come out because of his minutes restriction. So that was another aspect of that. And then you play Oklahoma City down to the wire without Tatum and Derek White, and it takes literally until the final second for them to beat you. And I know Oklahoma City was missing players as well, but I think everyone would agree that team is much deeper than the Celtics. That is the deepest team in the NBA by far. And then you fast forward to this week where they beat Oklahoma City at home, a game where they trailed by double digits at one point. And I know that's not a big deal in today's NBA, right? Like a double-digit lead means nothing. Just with the pace, the tempo, the three-point volume, all that, it really doesn't mean anything. But for them to win that game in the way that they did it, with Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown leading the charge, that's what speaks volumes to this team. Because we know, people were kind of hesitant to how good they were going to be because one, people didn't necessarily think that Jaylen Brown could lead the team the way that he has. There was plenty of question marks of whether or not he can step up and be that true 1A. Well, he's answered that by being an MVP candidate. So that is a resounding yes. With Jayson Tatum, how is he going to look when he comes back? He's played 10 games and it hasn't been perfect, but I think everyone would agree, looking at him now, he's far more impactful than we thought he was going to be, coming back from a torn Achilles in less than 300 days. So when it's those two guys leading the charge, that's what makes you feel like this team can win a championship. Because every time that they've been on the floor together, they've been NBA Finals contenders. They've been to what, 5 Eastern Conference Finals, like together, like. They've done this for years. Every time that they've been together, they've given the Celtics a chance to compete, not only to win the East, but to win the NBA Finals. And this year is no different.
Yeah, I mean, the Oklahoma City game is very interesting because in playoffs all the time, you look at matchups and, sometimes the matchup's not there. Sometimes it's just, hey, man, Mitchell Robinson's just going to be a huge problem for you, and he's just going to dominate so many things and nothing you can do about it, right? That's just sometimes you don't have answers. When you watch them play Oklahoma City and when you watch them play San Antonio specifically, Koff, we talked about this in our little text group. They clearly have a plan of like how to beat those teams. With San Antonio, it's like, okay, well, if Wemby is going to shoot above 50% on 15 3-point attempts in a game, you're going to lose. Like, you're just going to lose. And you know what? Boston is very cool and comfortable saying, you know what, dude? All right, fine. No problem. You go to the Oklahoma City game, specifically the second one. Boston was like Shea, and Shea was unbelievable in that game, 10-12. He was insane. Shea, we're going to guard you like crazy, but if we lose because Dort and Caruso knock down threes, then I'm going to tell you all right now, I'm going to look right in the camera. If Dort and Caruso are hitting threes, nobody's beating that team. Nobody's beating Oklahoma City. It's not going to be possible. So that's what they did. They said, look, knock yourselves out, guys. Have a blast. We're going to try and make life hard for SGA as hard as we can. We'll rebound the hell out of it, or at least we'll crash as much as we possibly can. But we're going to have a ton of attention on SGA. We're not going to worry about the other guys. And if those other guys hit shots, so be it. Those I think, are at least formulas that could prove out to be a winning formula if they were to meet either of those teams in the finals. And the fact that you can say that, Turp, after, in May, when we were all, Tatum's gone for the year, they're going to reset because they're going to get rid of Holiday. They got to get rid of Porzingis. We'll see what happens with Horford. I don't think any of us thought that Cornette was truly gone, but it was on the table. Like, if you had told us that they would be not only an East, finals candidate, a legit threat to win the finals, about to win 50 games, I would have thought you were nuts. But here we are. It is March 28th, and I agree with the both of you. This team is 100% capable of winning the NBA Finals, and that is insane to talk about right now.
I think the Spurs are a very interesting barometer because obviously this was never something the franchise discussed or even entertained. But remember right around the draft where like all the Twitter streets, all these Celtics fans were like, oh, do you trade Jaylen Brown to start the Spurs, really blow this thing up and move into the lottery? Like, that was a conversation that people, again, not the organization, but fans were throwing that out on the internet and being like, well, they're going to stink so bad. Might as well just get ahead of this reset, move into the lottery, move on from Jaylen Brown. Now, with the win on Sunday against Charlotte, they reached 50 wins. They're well within, the second seed of the Eastern Conference, like you said, Koff. They're probably not going to get the first seed. That's not going to happen. You know, the disparity between them and Detroit is too tough to overcome. But the fact that they're here and we're having these conversations is absolutely wild. And when you look at how it unfolded, like everything that needed to go right for them and everyone that needed to step up in their role did. Joe Mazzulla had plenty of question marks still, even after winning a championship, being one of the winningest coaches, not even being hyperbolic, winningest coaches in NBA history entering this season, had question marks. People thought he was a product of the roster that he had. I think that he answered a lot of those questions this year. Jaylen Brown, we talked about it earlier. Can he be the 1A? He answered that earlier. Can Derek White and Peyton Pritchard elevate in their role? Yes. Can they get even one of Kada, Ugo, Shireman, one of these guys, Jordan Walsh, to contribute? Well, all of them did. All of them did in their specific roles. And it's just, it speaks to the organizational structure from top to bottom. And that starts with Brad Stevens identifying these guys, Joe Mazzulla and the coaching staff really kind of developing them and making them into impactful players. And this isn't like independent this year. Like Luke Cornett, he just got $40 million last year. The guy was playing in the G League at one point, bouncing around 10-day contracts back in the COVID years. Like Sam Hauser, that guy came from the G League as well. Peyton Pritchard didn't play in the G League, but was a Celtic developmental story. Like we've seen plenty of these. And then it starts with the leaders as well, with Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum. Like those guys coming back, setting the tone. Even Jayson Tatum being present at the facility every day. Like the players talked about how motivating that was. And when those guys set the table, it all falls in line. And that's what enables this to work as well as it did. And, you know, I want to say it's like as crazy as it is, because again, like who expected them to win 50 games? I didn't. I think they'd be better than people thought. I thought they were going to be a playoff game, but no way did I think 50 wins. And here we are. And again, that just speaks to the organizational structure from top to bottom.
Few things there. I'm not going to say I picked 50 wins. 45, 48 felt about right. I thought 50 wins was within reach. What I absolutely didn't expect was that 50 wins would be on the table with, again, 8-9 games to play. The fact that the Celtics have as much season as they still have left and could get themselves to, 55 plus wins, like that was outside the realm of anything that I thought was realistically plausible. In terms of the bench, everything that you just mentioned is true. We had Brian Barrett on with us last week. It was just an hour and a half of everyone filleting the Celtics back half of the roster and what this team has done. So yeah, with good reason, everybody is celebrating the depth on this team that a lot of us did not expect to be there. The thing for me that really jumps out, and you mentioned obviously Jaylen Brown, could he be a 1A? I never for a moment doubted whether he was capable of being a 1A. I'll add some semantics to that though. The question for me was, could he be a 1A on a great team? Like, of course, he could go out and be a 1A on a decent team, certainly on a bad team. Could he be a 1A on a great team? That's a big question that he has answered. And that, like you said, I quibble with this one. Like, he'll get MVP votes. He's not going to win the award. The fact that, Wemby is even in that conversation now after kind of talking himself into it with a lot of the people out there after that interview with Jared Weiss. I mean, good on him. It's a narrative streak kind of situation when you get to this type of time of the year, but Brown's too far off. Where the thing that let's take it all the way back to Tatum, your first point. It's been 10 games, and I could run through the 10-game check-in, all the different numbers. We could do that. Doesn't matter. I mean, obviously, if you've been watching, and I'm sure Celtics fans, anyone who's bothering to listen, watch this show, you've been glued to it. You know what Tatum has been doing and how impactful he has been. Yeah, there have been some elements of inconsistency to it, as fully expected, by the way, coming off the absence, no training camp, no preseason games, hasn't played in 10 months, all of that stuff. He has been largely excellent. But for me, it's not these spurts of 5 straight points, 7 straight points, having a flashy dunk, hitting back-to-back threes, some of those exciting moments. It's bringing an element to this team reliably that was so sorely lacking prior to his arrival. And largely, I'm talking about not only the playmaking, but most especially the rebounds. This guy, and I'm rounding up a little bit, it's 9.5, but he's rebounding 10 times per game. The guy's averaging 10 rebounds per game. I know there's some size on this roster. Kada, Garza, Brown has certainly turned into a better rebounder in an enhanced role where that has been required of him earlier on in the year. But there is no guy on this roster other than Jayson Tatum, and this has been true for multiple years now, that you could look at and say, that guy, when the game starts, he can get me 10, 12 rebounds today. reliably. And that is just such an important element of what has led to this success since he has returned. They were successful beforehand, don't get me wrong, but they were successful with some holes. He has patched up so many of these holes just by existing, just by bringing those Jayson Tatum things to the floor. And the offense, yeah, he's averaging just south or right around 20 points per game, but the offense, it isn't even there yet compared to what it might be in the playoffs. This is still a guy that can get you 25, 30 points on the regular. I mean, he's getting more and more comfortable every single game, but it's those other things that he is doing either away from the ball or with the ball leading the offense, with the offense going through him, that a lot of people want to bitch and say, oh, it's getting stagnant doing all that stuff. No, the offense is moving at a very crisp rate with Jayson Tatum in the ways that it needs to. I know it slows down to some degree, but it doesn't mean it leads to bad plays. He has been excellent. He has improved this team as a guy of the stature of Jayson Tatum should. But it's the rebounding, the rim protection, the presence around the glass. That to me is I think what flips the script a little bit. That to me, Turp, with some of those weapons on the other side that other teams can present you, that turns this conversation from can they win the East to can they win the title.
They were supposed to be one of the worst rebounding teams in the league, and they knew that. Joe Mazzulla in the preseason was pulling anybody who allowed an offensive rebound off the floor. They fully expected to be a bad rebounding team. And like you mentioned, they did have success before, like going into the All-Star break, like they were towards the top of defensive rebounding percentage. It got better month by month. And I think when people look at the Celtics, they think this is a three-point shooting team. Like that is their identity. Their identity is rebounding, and specifically offensive rebounding. That's how they were able to maintain such a high offensive rating throughout the year, because they're creating all these second chance opportunities. They're creating all these extra possessions, and that's what they needed to do. And that's a credit to, again, the depth guys. Like you look at their numbers, it's not going to jump off the page, but you have Ugo Gonzalez and Baylor Sharman crashing from the corners at the way they are. It puts so much stress on opposing defenses, and it creates second chance opportunities for the Celtics that their rebounding has become such a strength for them. And at first it was really their offensive rebounding, but now with Jayson Tatum back and the way it was already progressing, the defensive rebounding is incredible. Like they're one of the best in the league in terms of the percentages now. And no one would have expected that. Like, I know we've been saying like, none of this was really predictable before the year or not, like whatever. This was probably the most surprising. And the organization knew it. Like I said, like Joe was pulling guys off the floor in the preseason, trying to send a message. Like, this is probably the most surprising is how well they've been able to rebound the basketball, because going through the roster at the beginning of the season, like where are they going to get these rebounds? Where's the size coming from? Like you didn't know what Cato was going to be. Like the front office, like they didn't know either. Like Brad Stevens on media day was asked about the big man rotation. He's like, I don't know. We'll see what they got. Like we'll have to wait and see. Like that to me has probably been in a season full of the surprises. And it sounds crazy to say their ability to rebound the basketball has been one of, if not the biggest.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at that, since the calendar turned Jan 1, I think they're the best rebounding team in the league, and I think Charlotte is second, which is why a lot of people like myself consider Charlotte to be pretty formidable when it comes to being an opponent, because not only they get out and run and their pace is unbelievable, but they also rebound the hell out of it. So a tough combination for a lot of teams. And again, Charles Lee is the man, so we can end with that. But like what Tatum has done to this team in terms of the rebounding is one thing, the playmaking is the other. And again, you go back to that Oklahoma City game and you go to the fourth quarter where they had Tatum, Kata, and then I think at the time it was like Pritchard, Hauser, and Shireman. And what that does. And they ran, first off, Kata gets a ton of credit from me because he just sets like stonewall screens out there. He's wiping people out, which is a huge advantage for them, because when you get whatever Tatum wants you to have, like Tatum will sit there, call up Kata, get a screen. And the way that Oklahoma City defends that screen is they don't want anybody being in drop. They bring both guys up to the level and try and force the ball out of Tatum's hands. So what happens is when he has that sort of advantage, everybody's kind of leaking out. And if you can get by like a Hartenstein or get by a Chet, well, now he's attacking the basket and you're pulling someone from the corner. Because Boston's spacing is wild. Because they have Hauser like 30 feet away. They'll have Pritchard 30 feet away. They'll have Shireman 30 feet away as like a wing guy, as like a safety valve sort of situation. Then you'll have two other guys in the corners. So you have like 40% three-point shooters on the floor at all times. And all three of them have insane range. Never mind Tatum is a pull-up threat from anywhere, and he's still getting his sea legs, still getting his balance. But when you look at the floor, when they have Kata coming up, setting a bone-chilling screen, Tatum getting off of it, with Pritchard on either wing from 30 feet away, pulling that defender all the way out, or that person's cheating towards Tatum and giving Peyton Pritchard a walk-in three, which, as you saw last night against the Hawks, is a really bad idea. So you have that part of the game going on. Then you have two other guys in each corner, Shireman and Hauser. And Hauser's had a tough season by his standard shooting the three ball. Like, he's 38%, I think, coming into that game against Charlotte on Sunday night, or Sunday afternoon, I should say. And then you have Shireman, who's been just awesome, especially recently. When you have that kind of floor spacing, shot making ability, and a creator like Tatum, you are a real problem for teams. And Oklahoma City, who's the best defensive team in the league, if you don't count whatever the hell Wemby's doing, the fact that they can do that against one of the best defensive teams in the league with guys that can match up a little bit better, that should be scary for everybody else. And that, to me, you talk about the rebounding, that's big. The playmaking from a 6'10 guy is the other part of this. And that particular sequence in the fourth quarter, I noted it because they ran the play, I think it was like the first play of the fourth quarter. They ran it. I think they got Hauser a wide open shot in the corner. And then they ran the same thing again next trip down the floor, but they flipped aside. And then it was Shireman with a three-pointer in the corner the same way. And, I think Shireman up fake, blow by, put it down to the floor, and hit the three, I think, from the left corner. And it's like, how do you defend that? Especially because Shireman and Hauser this year, but both those guys can put it on the floor. And so they put you in binds. They put you in 2-on-1 advantages. And if they can continue to do that, they are going to be super hard to beat. But it starts with Tatum as the initiator, and having that is, again, it's why I keep calling him the LeBron. The closest thing we have to LeBron is Tatum, because he can do stuff like that.
I do want to circle back real quick on the Kata comment, because you mentioned the screening. And I think that, and maybe this is just the sports talk radio background in me, I hear all the kind of negativity. It's like, can you win with Kata as your starting center? I think what you mentioned with the screening is exactly why. He's second in the NBA in screen assists this year behind Rudy Gobert, who is widely considered one of the best screeners in the NBA. And with Kata, the things he is doing this year are super sustainable. Like, I don't think he's doing anything like out of the realm of his possibilities. Like, he's rebounding the basketball and he's setting rock solid screens and he's being a rim protector. That's what he's doing. It's not like he's shooting like 43% from three. Like, he doesn't take threes. It's not like his shooting is like out of this world. It's a lot of vertical spacing. He goes up, he catches the lobs, he provides a lob threat and throws it down. And that's why I have so much faith in Kata moving forward, because this is who he is. What's he going to shrink and forget how to rebound and screen? Like, all of it is so sustainable moving forward that I don't really get some of these questions around Kata. It's like, Vooch should start over Kata in the playoffs because he has more experience. Vooch doesn't have that much experience in the playoffs either. The guy was the perennial, like, losing in the first round in the play-in round. Like, he doesn't have a ton of experience either. But when I'm looking at Kata, it's like what he's doing, and the reason he is so sustainable and so consistent is because he plays within his role and he does things that he can do at an elite level, and he does them very well.
Let's take a quick break, tell you about our good friends over at Prize Picks. The playoff push, it's heating up. Tournament hoops right here, getting down to the nitty gritty, obviously. Final Fours right around the corner. There's no better way to cash in if you're right on the high flying hoops action than Prize Picks. That's where it always feels good to be right. Every bucket, every dime, every win, it means more when you are playing on Prize Picks. And with their brand new Team Picks markets, you can now pick winners, spreads, and totals on top of the player picks that you already know. So cash in right now. If you're during all your, all the club buckets, you can go get it. So, slam dunk Cinderella's this spring with Team Picks on Prize Picks.
Last week was the end of the streak. I finally, flex play let me down. I was 0 for 3, not even 1 for 3 on this one. I was 0 for 3 last week. So we gotta really rebound here. It's been that was a tough pill to swallow because it was just a fun bit and kept going. So this particular flex play Saturday for today, we're gonna start with Joel Embiid, which makes me nervous already off the jump. We're gonna start with Joel Embiid, more than 38.5 points. Rebounds and assists versus the Hornets. Now, the Hornets are a great rebounding team, no question about it. but I'm hopeful because that game will be close. I hope that Embiid is able to rack up just a bunch of counting stats in that game. Next, we're going to Dennis Jenkins, and I never thought I would have him in any one of my lineups this year.
After he balled out the other day.
He's been awesome. More than 16.5 points against the Wolves. Again, I think these are going to be good games where they're going to play their full minutes. So I'm going Jenkins more than 16.5 points versus the Wolves. And then we got to add Sunday slate to this. We're going to talk about Shea. Shea, big game, Sunday against the Knicks, prime time, going more than 40.5 points, rebounds, and assists against the Knicks. I think it's very possible that Shea just absolutely kills Karl Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson in pick and roll all day. I like that particular part of my matchup. Obviously, you guys know I've hit all three. I 3x my money. 2 out of 3 get my money back, which has been the only way I've existed in prize picks this year. And getting your money couldn't be any easier. In little as 15 minutes, watch it roll into your account. Venmo, literally use Venmo. It's the easiest way to do it. And if your lineup is on fire, which happened to me 2 weeks ago, I could have cashed out early, but I did not, and it actually cost me. If everything's going well, you hit 2 out of 3 really early, and you're still in the middle of a game, you cash out early, and just maybe double your money. I could have doubled it, Kaufman, the other day, and I didn't. I screwed up, and it cost me dearly. So make sure you pay attention, folks, to those cash out early options.
Your time is coming, not to worry. So again, download the Prize Picks app today. Use code CLNS. You get $50 in lineups after playing your first for only $5. That is promo code CLNS. Get $50 in lineups after playing your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. All right, so we get Justin Turpin here from WEEI talking about this team's fortunes, the Celtics, what they can achieve, how they have gotten to this point, all of the different things that Jayson Tatum has brought back to the table. I was going to take this in a different direction, but I'm going to pause on that. Actually, I'll get there. Let's keep going with Tatum for a second. What are you still waiting for now that you've seen 10 games, fewer than 10 remaining in the regular season? Then you get to the playoffs where there aren't games back-to-back days. You know, there isn't going to be that built-in load management time. Obviously, he's not going to play every game that's remaining in the regular season. There'll be a break or two in there at some point, but he has been ramping up the minutes. Everyone wanted to pretend at the beginning there was no minutes restriction. There was. It was firmly set at 27 for a stretch of games, jumped up to about 32 and has continued to climb, where Jayson Tatum is now averaging 31 minutes. So they're getting him ready, obviously, for the postseason, Turp. What do you still feel like you need to see between now and, third week of April?
It's a really boring answer, but I think it's really the only one I have when I'm watching him. The shots need to start falling, right? He's shooting 38% from the field, only 30% from 3, because you mentioned it, like the playmaking's there. The rebounding, that was one of my biggest question marks with him, is obviously he made it public the other day. He was even saying it, one of the best rebounders at his position for a while, right? But I was a little bit worried about how willing he'd be to mix it up down low and really kind of get tangled up. Like, obviously you're going up, you're mixing up. It's a little physical when you're trying to grab rebounds. I was a little bit concerned about how willing he'd be able to do that coming off the Achilles injury. That hasn't been a problem. The playmaking hasn't been a problem. The defense, it's been largely great. Like at times, obviously, he doesn't have the same kind of burst and the same speed to keep up with some of these faster guards in particular, but it's been good. I think the biggest thing is his scoring. And I think when you're talking about Jayson Tatum, everyone gravitates towards his scoring, and for good reason. I know he can do everything, but his scoring is most valuable to this team. And that's what they're going to need in the postseason. They're going to need him to score the basketball. And with the percentages that he's shooting now, again, it's to be expected. He has only played 10 games, was out, 10 months? Like, it's to be expected that this isn't going perfect. But he needs to start scoring the basketball. He needs to be shooting more efficiently going into the playoffs, because obviously that's just such a big part of what they're trying to do.
Yeah, for me, it's finishing at the rim. And I'm going to try because the 3-point shot for Tatum always kind of comes and goes, and he has been sort of a streaky shooter in the past where, like, some days I always go back to that meme of the calendar where it's like, is Jayson Tatum okay? Then it's like, he's the greatest player in the world. Yeah. And then we have that little
February, that's his best month. That was like the calendar meme. He always gets so crazy in February.
I feel like we've been the calendar meme, I feel like has been around for 6 years at this point.
It's just like the
there is a
19-year-old
consistency
memes.
to it.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's some of my favorite stuff. And like for me, like the finishing at the rim is going to be what I worry about the most because like the 3-point shot comes and goes, but get into the basket and finishing through contact or going to the free throw line. That's really the secret sauce of Jayson Tatum. It's actually been the secret sauce of Jaylen Brown this year, specifically lately. Like Jaylen's gotten to the free throw line a bunch of times, which like legitimately brings him from one tier of player to another tier of player. And that's the same thing for Tatum. Like when he finds a way to get better than 52% at the rim, he's at 51.7% right now in only 58 attempts. So it's not like he's taken a lot because obviously he hasn't played that much. But if he's blowing by guys, getting to the basket and either finishing through contact or going to the free throw line, that's when I'll know like this is the guy that we know and love and that we're used to. Again, when Tatum's able to, average double-digit free throws a game, he literally changes the game. And if he can get to the free throw line or get to the basket and finish, like that's all you need to see. The 3-point shot, is sort of gravy, I think. Like he is a good 3-point shooter, but the 3-point shots he takes are tough. It's like, yeah, if he was just a standalone, sit in the corner or be like a safety valve 3-point shooter and just got to stand still and shoot, yeah, I'm sure he'd be awesome at that. But what you're asking Tatum to do is get the ball on a switch against a 7-1 big man, dribble it out, and then, time it right so he shoots a 3. Like, that's a whole different element of trying to be a good 3-point shooter. So the 3-point numbers can vary up and down pending what type of shot he's getting. For me, it's, again, Turp, it's all about getting to the basket, finishing through contact, or going to the free throw line. That is the last step for me. As you said, the rebounding's there. The playmaking, again, as he's knocking off the rust is there. Like that skip pass to Brown in the left wing where he's in the right corner. He's got like Isaiah Joe on him and he's surveying, and Luca Garza gives the little hand signal. And so Derek White pinches down to do the elevator screen, and it's a skip pass over the top of that to Brown. Like that is awesome stuff. That's going to get better. The defense, the help rotation block on Lou Dort at the rim, and again against the Oklahoma City offense, that's good stuff. That'll come with time. The same thing with this. Like this, if as long as he can get to the free throw line and finish at the rim, like again, they're going to be very, 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 very difficult to stop.
And I don't want to kind of contradict, my answer with the shooting, but the thing with Jayson Tatum, and I think it speaks to the caliber of player he is, he can impact the game without necessarily shooting the ball well. And I think the most glaring example of that is the NBA Finals. They won a championship with him not necessarily shooting the ball very efficiently. Like, I think that speaks to the caliber of player he is. And I think that also goes to your point of when he's getting downhill and he's getting to the free throw line, he's a different player. And if they have two of those players in Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum, that completely changes this team. So I do like that answer with the rim because, again, he can shoot inefficiently and they can still be highly successful. And we saw that on the biggest stage where he wants to get back to in the NBA Finals.
All right, now I'll go where I was going to go, which is looking at the hierarchy of the Eastern Conference, because for all of this sitting around celebrating what Boston could do against the top tier of the West, you do have to get there first, guys. So Detroit, the only team in the East that has clinched a playoff spot so far, as we know, does not have Cade Cunningham back from the collapsed lung yet, but it is expected to happen soon. We're looking at a 4-game deficit, Celtics behind the Pistons. Game and a half in front of the Knicks. I am confident in Boston's ability to hold on to this, but it's worthy of thinking about at the very least, because, there now people start to make, well, do you want to finish second? Is it better to finish third? And trying to strategically outline your matchups and all that. To me, just win games. I don't
get punished by the basketball gods for that.
Yeah, honestly, just win games. It will shake out how it shakes out is how I see it. So the Celtics, again, 49-24. Then you have the Knicks. Then you have the Cavs, who are playing. All of these teams are playing better. All of them have at least 7 wins in their last 10 games. You skip over the Raptors, who have their moments, but I just don't think they're all that big a threat come playoff time to anyone, really. Hawks have turned it on when they have had to. They've won 8 out of 10. I always believed this team would be better without Trae Young. I still don't believe it's a team that threatens to come out of the Eastern Conference. And then from the play-in tournament, we know who's going to be in there, barring Atlanta or Toronto falling back. And it's Philadelphia, Charlotte, Orlando, Miami. The Hornets, as we know, 5 straight wins. This team has been playing great for months and could absolutely climb into that top 6, should be a top 8 team, and not a team that anyone is going to want to see the way it's playing in the first round of the playoffs, maybe even the second round of the playoffs, but we're projecting ahead. Who to you is really the team, not the teams, the team that would worry you if you're looking at the East and saying, this is the obstacle, this is the one that Boston needs to either hope to not see or will have a tough time to get around?
I think it has to be New York. They beat you last year. They have the experience. Detroit has really no experience in the playoffs, period. I know they got there last year, and I actually think they were the better team against the Knicks last year for a majority part of that season, that series. But they didn't have the experience and they couldn't get it done. You don't know what's going to happen with Cade Cunningham and how he looks when he comes back. The Celtics also played the Pistons really tough this year. I know they were 1-3 in the season series, but all 3 of those losses were decided by 7 points or fewer. They played them very tough and didn't have Jayson Tatum on the floor. When you're looking at New York, like, first of all, that's an emotional series for the Celtics and for Jayson Tatum in particular, going back there in the postseason. Like, you can't ignore the human element of this. Like, going back, that is an emotional test to go back there and play them on the postseason like they did last year. They beat them last year. I think New York has, for all their flaws, I think we'd spent so much time last year, everyone would previewing the series. The Celtics obviously swept them in the regular season. Well, you can't win with Karl Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson as your best players and they're your biggest defensive liabilities. The Knicks proved they can. And over, like, really since the last 2 months, they've been one of the better defensive teams in the NBA. And that was one of their biggest question marks throughout the season, is how consistent can New York be defensively? And they've really turned that around. So I look at New York. I really don't think Cleveland's much of a threat. We saw that a couple weeks ago when the Celtics went into their house and ran them out of the court. They're 3-0 against Cleveland. None of those games have really been great. Detroit, I just don't think the experience is there, and I gravitate towards New York. I think that's the answer. I do want to throw this out, though, because I found this interesting. I was looking like the standings, and I accidentally clicked the basketball power index for ESPN and their projections. They have the Celtics as the 4th highest percentage to make the conference finals, to make the NBA finals out of the Eastern Conference. They have Detroit at 27.2%, New York at 21.6%, Cleveland at 21.3%, and the Celtics at 17.2%, which I don't really know what goes into that calculations, but that seems a little crazy to me to have Cleveland over the Celtics and maybe even Detroit over Celtics. If, to answer the question, to go back to the original point, I think New York would be the only team I'd have over Boston.
Yeah, I'll do the thing I always do with any team that employs James Harden. Like, I'm just never going to sweat that team ever. I mean, we have so much evidence that says that James Harden continues to collapse when it really, 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 really matters. And I never sweat the Sixers ever. Again, Kaufman, you've been on this show for years. I've never, ever, 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 ever sweated the Sixers. I don't care how good they are.
Nope.
But I will say,
form.
A team that does worry me a little bit, and it's going to sound nuts, but I will explain it, is the Orlando Magic. It has nothing to do with what they do in terms of like their execution or anything like that. I was nervous last year when Boston played them because Orlando just likes to play overly physical. It felt like last year at certain points of that series that Orlando's main goal was just to get somebody hurt and try and get somebody out of the game so they could maybe steal one or two. And that still is buried back here in the back of my head, very much like Miami used to be, where you'd see Miami, and I don't care what team they trot out there. I've never cared what team they trot out. It's just the way that Miami works. They seem to find a Gabe Vincent who has an insane time, or a Caleb Martin, or a whatever, right? Just some guy is going to go nuts. And like Caleb Martin goes crazy against the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals, and then plays the Denver Nuggets, and you've never heard from him since. Like, you just never heard from him. So it just makes me angry. This is a very similar feeling. Like, there's no world, I don't think, where Boston would actually lose to Orlando. I just think this team is super physical. They're going to muck things up. They have a lot of pretty decent defenders, like adding Desmond Bane, who's a tank. I don't love that. But in all facets I think Boston will win. It's just, what does Boston look like after that series? Then I get really nervous about just playing a team that knows that, like, hey, we played them last year. We got really physical with them and see if we can do it again. I don't want no part of that. Zero part of that.
I don't worry about Orlando as presently constituted. Now, if Franz Wagner comes back and looks as he typically looks, that's a new dynamic, obviously, where you got three. I mean, you got some depth there as well, but you got 3 star level players that can all beat you in different ways. Till that happens, I'm not even sure Orlando gets out of the play-in, to be perfectly honest with you.
And they don't really seem very motivated right now with Jamal
No.
Mosley. I think he's going to be one of the first to go this summer. They had lofty expectations too. Yeah, everyone's coach of the year. People were picking them as a dark horse to win the Eastern Conference.
Yeah.
And when you look at their expectations relative to what they were at the beginning of the year, this has been kind of a disastrous season for them, and they have a lot of question marks moving forward. So I do agree with the point that they're a physical team, and just like the battle scars and the bumps and the bruises coming out of that would be not great. And we said that last year about the Celtics, because like everyone knew they were going to beat Orlando. It was just, how banged up are you going to be? And I don't think obviously the Celtics were very banged up, and I don't think that necessarily had much to do with Orlando. It played into it, but like Jaylen was dealing with the knee injury already. Drew Holiday missed 3 or 4 games in that series because of the hamstring. Porzingis was a shell of himself with the injury, or the illness rather. So the Celtics were already so banged up at the point last year, like that was kind of their demise. But I don't know how much Orlando really played into that.
It's fair.
For the Celtics, how does we mentioned him earlier? How does Vucevic impact things? We don't know when we're going to see him again. A lot of people do presume that's going to be before the end of the regular season, so sometime in the next couple of weeks. But he certainly was not playing his best basketball as a member of the Celtics since his arrival. There were a couple of games, but in a general sense, I think a lot of people have felt kind of underwhelmed by his addition compared to expectation and some of the needs that he theoretically addressed walking through the door, in particular size and rebounding and all of that. And honestly, not that, I don't know, like Gary Washburn mentioned this to us a couple weeks back. Like, would you undo the trade if you could? Like, would you rather have Anthony Simons right now and that spark off the bench offensively? And I know he's missed a lot of time with an injury since going to the Bulls, but just again, sort of presenting this as like a deal that really I don't feel like has worked out particularly well for either side in an exchange of expiring contracts and rental players. But is the reason to be Turp more helpful about Vooch when he does return come a playoff run?
I think there is. And I think, first of all, he's only played 12 games, and the Celtics are 9-3 in those games. So it's not like it's been a disaster. I know they've had some bad losses in there. Obviously, the Knicks on Super Bowl Sunday was embarrassing, and he was not good in that game. But I know it hasn't been great, but they are still winning basketball games with him on the floor. But I think the important thing about this and his injury that he has now, it's his finger, right? So he can still participate in certain things in practice and kind of get more of a feel and more of a rhythm. The Celtics offense and their defensive system as well, like it's a completely different system than what he's been playing with. And I think it's taken some time for him to adjust to that, like it is any player. And in recent memory, when have the Celtics added a player of that kind of impact and that kind of caliber at the deadline? Like you've had your Jaden Springers or Xavier Tillmans. Like you really haven't had anyone like Vooch, a guy that's an all-star in the league, one of established as one of the better bigs in the league. So I think part of that is just the patience that comes with that, because they haven't had to integrate a player like that, like a player that's actually going to come in and play in the rotation at the deadline. Like this is kind of a new thing. So I think him only playing 12 games was a factor of that. And part of it too was just the inefficiency and the shots he was getting. Like they tapped into his passing ability. They tapped into his post-up ability. And I think that's going to be an intriguing part when he's back as well, his ability to post up alongside Jayson Tatum, because they completely got away from posting up the first 50-something 60 games of the season. They didn't really have anyone to do it. Like the last couple of years, it was Jayson Tatum and Kristaps Porzingis. Al Horford would mix it in a couple times too, maybe even Drew Holiday. This year, there really hasn't been any of those post-ups, and I think Vucevic and Tatum provide that kind of different look for them when they can kind of get going. So I think it's important that it was a finger injury. It wasn't a lower body injury. So he's on the floor, probably going through some walkthrough stuff and getting more of a feel for this offense and whatnot. I do kind of wonder what it's going to look like with Jayson Tatum in game action, because they obviously haven't played much together. But all in all, I mean, yes, it has been underwhelming, but it's a unique circumstance for this team where they haven't had to assimilate a guy into the rotation at the deadline in the Joe Mazzulla era, really.
I would still make the trade 10 times.
I just Googled. I was curious. So Well, during the Missoula era, I will go with you on that. But I pulled up this article from Chowder and Champions, the 5 best trade deadline deals in Celtics franchise history.
Okay.
Let's see how many. There will be at least a couple more recently that you guys remember. But this is one writer's opinion, and I will tell you that Vooch is not on this list. Number 5, 2022, reuniting with Daniel Tice, getting him from the Rockets for Dennis Schroeder, Bruno Fernando, Ennis Freedom, formerly Cantor.
There was an emotional tie on that one too. People loved Daniel Tice.
Loved Daniel.
We're on Tice, baby. That shit was bullshit.
Number 4, 2021, Luke Cornett's first Celtic stint. Got him.
But he wasn't really playing.
Deal. Got him in a 3-team deal with Mo Wagner, not Franz, but Mo. Celtic for a second, in a deal with the Wizards and the Bulls. Some of the other guys involved in that trade: Daniel Tice, Javonte Green, Troy Brown Jr. all went to Chicago. Washington got Chandler Hutchinson, whoever that is, and Daniel Gafford.
Oh,
Gafford
in there. Yeah.
Number 3, the pick that paved the way for Tony Allen, 2004. Celtics got a first-round pick from Detroit and cash, along with Lindsey Hunter and Chucky Atkins,
baby.
Yep.
I love that.
Pistons got Rasheed Wallace and Mike James. And the Hawks, Chris Mills, Bob Sura. You remember Bobby
Sura? He was an ass.
Wow, what a pull. I forgot. That just unlocked a memory I forgot I had.
You wouldn't believe how many Bobby Sura college basketball cards I have. And Milwaukee's 2004 first-round pick and another dude that I've literally never heard of and can't pronounce his name. Number 2, 2015, we all know. The legend of Isaiah Thomas is born. Yeah. Obviously,
I can't believe that's not number 1, but
many will say that sort of, stemmed what the future had in front of us. Isaiah Thomas from the Suns for Marcus Thornton and Cleveland's 2016 first-round pick. Number 1. Do you want to take it back, Ev? Do you want to take it back? Number 1, the Celtics received Derek White from the Spurs for Romeo Langford, Josh Richardson, Boston's 2022 first-round pick, and a 2028 first-round pick swap.
Wow. Well, that's tough because, according to certain people, Kenny Atkinson, Derek White's top 5 player in the league, but Isaiah did finish top 5 MVP, dude.
Isaiah also, for all the love that Derek White gets and deserves, and has absolutely been a part of what the Celtics have accomplished in recent years, and a huge part of it, this year included. Isaiah Thomas, that addition put them on the path.
Oh,
he was, part of the recruitment, obviously, for Al Horford, Gordon Hayward for a second until he was swapped for Kyrie Irving, but, deep playoff runs, even when it was the Celtics, they can get to the conference finals, but there's no chance. I can't believe they're even sitting there to begin with. They're not going to do anything. But Isaiah Thomas was part of them starting to get to what felt like annually in the Final Four.
Yeah.
I just look back on those, just thinking back on the Isaiah years, it always just brings a smile to my face. Those teams were so much fun. They were trying out Amir Johnson as starting center. Those teams were awesome.
Jay Crowder, Amir Johnson,
Jerebko was there for a those teams were great.
Smart. Yeah,
James. This article from Chowder and Champions. Jeff Szymanski, I believe, wrote it. He wrote it 2 months ago today, as a matter of fact.
I would say Derek White is probably a fair number 1 because they won a championship. As as much as the Isaiah years are great, Derek White was a key contributor on a team that won an NBA Finals and has consistently went to another one. They've been to another NBA Finals. So yeah, I mean, when I was kind of saying that, I was thinking more of the Joe Mazzulla era because obviously there was the Derek White,
correct.
But the Tice and the Cornette ones, those guys didn't really play a ton, So it's even then.
No, remember these are trades, obviously. There's a part of me, it's come on, man, PJ Brown. But obviously that was a signing out of retirement, so totally different thing.
Right. So I think there is some patience with Vooch in that sense where this is new with the Joe Mazzulla era, and really Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown have done it before, but that happens when you play for almost a decade together. Of course it's going to come up, and they did it with, Derek White, obviously with Tyson Cornette, but those two didn't play as much. So I think it is kind of new, and there is it was also, again, he brings something so different to this team where it's kind of something they didn't have with the post-up ability and the pick and pop. As good as Luca Garza was doing, like shooting the ball this year, they weren't really using it a ton until like more recently. He doesn't take the volume that Vucevic does as well. So I think it is that kind of dynamic is a little bit different.
Yeah, they operate a little bit differently too, though. Garza and
100%.
Like
Yeah.
Vooch is a little closer to the, a little closer to the 3-point line on offense because, like, just he's always a trailer and kind of bringing up the rear a little bit. Whereas Garza is an absolute maniac and is flying all over the place to do whatever. Like that. To be honest with you, I was gonna go with I would make the Vooch Simons trade 10 times out of 10 only because what it did to Luca Garza, and they've talked about it like after the games or like after practice and things like Garza spoke about how everybody like kind of brought him like, hey man, just because they traded for a guy doesn't mean you can't still make an impact on this team. And I honestly think that Garza's been playing, and I will eat all the crow ever, man. I owe Luca Garza an apology. I really do. The guy's been way better than I expected. I mean, Kaufman, we killed him. Yep. I can't tell you how many times I made fun of the fact
I wanted Charles Bassey, and you know what? They still brought him back. I made fun of the fact that Garza shoots more practice shots than him in the NBA and like doesn't amount to anything. Like I owe that guy an apology. He's been just way better than I expected. And when he's on the floor just because like you feel his presence and like he's not scoring 20 a game. He's not collecting 10 rebounds a game. He's not like a huge impact player. Like I'm not trying to say that, but what I am saying is when he's on the floor, because he is literally everywhere. And I think getting Vooch made him realize, like, hey, man, like every minute I get, I have to just remind everybody, like, you don't need Vooch. I'm here. I got this. I got this on lockdown. You don't need to bring this guy in at all. And I will say they've been better with Garza at any point since Vooch got here than they were with Vooch in the short action they had with him.
Imagine saying that we'd be sitting here with 9 games in the regular season talking about a playoff rotation, and people are upset that Luca Garza might not be playing and that Jordan Walsh hasn't been playing either. Imagine saying that before the season. Like it's incredible. Like the development stories up and down the roster. We've been talking about it for an hour now. It's just so spectacular that we're sitting here talking about Luca Garza should be starting over an all-star Nikola Vucevic, possible, or playing over Nikola Vucevic in the postseason. Maybe it's crazy.
If Vooch has a great playoff run and the team gets to the NBA Finals, does he jump automatically past Tice on the 5th in this list and maybe even climbs over? Do you put him over Kornet? Kornet turned into a really impactful player.
No,
Kornet was huge for them. Even in that finals run, like he played during that run. So like, I think he was important there. Tice, there's just such a fanfare for him. Like they absolutely love the guy still. So I don't know if he jumps Tice in that sense. But if he's impactful, I think it does change his thing. Because at the end of the day, it comes down to the winning. And that's why I put Derek White at number 1. So if they do go out and win a championship, I don't know if he jumps Kornet because people forget how good Kornet was, man. I think he was just overshadowed by like many ways that Keita was. Like we were talking about earlier, how Keita just does his role and he does it at an elite level. It was the same thing with Kornet. It was the offensive rebounding. It was the screening. It was the rim protection. It was all that like, it's not the most glamorous stuff, but if you're watching, it made it such a difference for them. So I don't know if he would jump Kornet, but he has an argument to maybe go up to 3rd. Actually, I have trouble putting him over Isaiah too. That's a personal thing though.
I get that. That's fair. So in front of us still, boys, we've got pull up the schedule here. So it's the beginning of a 4-game trip off the 2 straight wins against the Thunder and the Hawks to conclude March and take us into early April. At Charlotte tomorrow. At Atlanta, rematch. Just beat them by 7, as we know, in this most recent game yesterday as we sit here. At Miami, at Milwaukee. 3 teams that are in the mix to do something in the East, and then a Milwaukee team that is fighting with its best player. We'll see how that goes. Again, yeah, good point. What Turp, what are you looking for over the course of this 4-game trip, other than ideally at least 3-1?
I mean, this is a tough one. Like you said, like these are teams well within the mix of things. Charlotte obviously destroyed the. It was their biggest loss of the season against Charlotte at home. So that's a team that you could possibly see in the playoffs, and that I don't think anyone necessarily wants to see. I know they're a young team, but they play with so much energy. Like I mean, their playmakers are incredible. Like Brandon Miller, Khan, obviously LaMelo Ball. Like those guys. That's a good team. Charles Lee has them playing some really good basketball. So I actually look at this as a good test for the Celtics. Like 9 games left, and you got Charlotte, Atlanta, Miami, like you said, all in the thick of things. Then looking even beyond that, you get Toronto in the thick of things, Charlotte again, New York, who you're vying with for the 2 seed, in Orlando. So you have plenty of teams right now that'll get you ramped up for the postseason. I think for Jayson Tatum in particular, this is huge. This gives him kind of the closest things you're going to get to postseason minutes without actually playing them, because all of these teams, like what is it, 4 through 10 or 5 through 10 in the Eastern Conference is all separated by like 2 games. Like these teams are fighting for their lives. And that's going to give Jayson Tatum and this team an opportunity to really gel against high-level competition, teams that are going to be bringing it every night. Because it's one thing to play games in mid-March or late March when teams are kind of easing off a little bit, they're kind of saving their energy for the playoffs. They're not really as physical and whatnot. These teams are fighting for their lives, and this is going to be the closest that you get to postseason minutes without actually playing them. So I guess I'd like to see the execution and see what they've continued to do. And I think they've done a good job in matching teams in their physicality, and they're going to see plenty of that down the stretch. So I want to see that continue.
Well, here's the real good news, Ev. These Elite 8 games are starting to bump up a little bit now that we're on the weekend here. Later games today, Iowa, Illinois, Purdue, Arizona. But tomorrow, Tennessee, Michigan is at 2:15, and UConn, Duke is at 5. So you're only going to have an hour overlap of that game and the Celtics game. If you did want to see that one through, it should be a great game. And then pop on the Celtics for the second half.
Right, yeah. I mean, we got some great hoops the next couple of days. That Purdue-Arizona game is going to be real, like it's going to be real physical, folks. It's going to be extremely. I'm actually probably the most excited about that game. I think that's going to be like that. Who did Purdue beat? They beat Iowa. Who'd they beat?
No,
Purdue beat on Thursday.
Iowa State lost last night to.
They beat somebody Thursday night. Oh, Texas buzzer beater.
Yeah, Tennessee.
I knew it was a orange red something. That game was incredible. That was at the end of the game, unbelievable stuff. And that's, I mean, obviously Duke UConn's going to get all the hype just because those are 2 like legit blue blood programs. But I'm super excited because I think Purdue, frankly, guards at a level that most teams, even in the NBA, don't. I think their rotations are super crisp. Their help defense is unbelievable. I really enjoy watching that team. Arizona will be a tough matchup for them.
I was efforting to find a trivia question because Roosevelt Colvin, the old Patriot, his son used to be on Purdue, but he transferred out of there. He was on Purdue last year when they were playing at like they held that round at the Amp in Providence. And I saw like Roosevelt Colvin on the sideline. I was like, what the hell is he doing here? And it turns out his son was playing for Purdue, but now plays for Wake Forest. So no longer.
Is anybody ready for the tourney to be over just so we're not watching every commercial featuring the Boozer brothers?
I mean, yeah.
That part, I mean, I tune out commercials anyway. I don't really watch. I just go on my phone, start looking at the live lines, whatever else it may be. But no, the tournament's been great. This is awesome. And I think a lot of people are kind of worried like the NIL and that aspect of it could kind of take away the Cinderella runs. But like the basketball has been incredible.
Yeah, well, I mean, it generally has, other than Iowa at the moment. And obviously, if Iowa does beat Illinois, then, hey, we'll see. But, assuming that the chalk wins over the course of the next couple of days, then you're going to be looking at a Final Four that has Illinois a 3 seed, Arizona or Purdue a 1 or a 2, Michigan a 1 seed, and Duke or Connecticut a 1 or 2. So you're going to have, obviously a pretty chalky Final Four and final, but that's okay. It's not great for Cinderellas, but it is okay if you want to see the best players on the best teams and the best basketball. That is what we've got in front of us here over the course of the next couple of weeks. But Celtics too, folks, and the playoffs, remember, got to get through that play-in tournament. So the regular season ends, a game that could be pretty important for Orlando at that point, on April 12th at the Garden. And then you'll have a little bit of a, ballpark a week, better part of a week before the first round actually starts. So the Celtics will, I'm sure the exact date is out there. I just don't have it in front of me. So let's call it April 18th or 19th, the Celtics will get started with their first round series against one of these teams. Should be interesting. But man, I mean, just the fact, I've said this so many times, and I say it not for you out there, I say it for me, like just to continue to remind myself, the fact that we're even having these conversations after how we all felt as Tatum was writhing around on the floor last May, it's amazing. It is amazing. You would have thought, I mean, there was a version of this, not that Ev and I subscribe to it fully, but there was a version of this where March 28th, April right around the corner, we're really talking about the tournament and really looking at the lottery and, who do you want? Who are these college? I remember we had, someone who covered Creighton on with us to break down the Baylor Shireman pick after he was drafted. And don't get me wrong, some of those shows will still come in the offseason, but I thought we'd be having some of those shows right now. Like, let's get so-and-so on from Duke and talk about Boozer. I'm glad that we're not doing that. I'm glad that we have hopefully another couple months at least of Celtics basketball still in front of us. But want to thank our good friends over at Prize Picks. Want to remind you, check out the podcast wherever you subscribe to the audio versions of your podcast. Rate, review, leave comments, all of that good stuff. And, of course, the video. Your CLNS Media YouTube page, the All Access page, features our show, Celtics Beat, so many others across the network. You can check out the main page for coverage of other teams in Boston sports. The Red Sox are underway and off to a nice start. That 3-0 win in Cincinnati with Crochet on the hill looked pretty good. But Turp, always wonderful to have you here with us. Maybe we'll do it again before the playoffs roll around.
My pleasure, guys. Anytime.
Justin Turpin, WEEI, Evan Valenti, Adam Kaufman, thanks for being with us, and we will talk to you again next time.